I know the house called to me. 3 hours ago, I sat with my rune cards. 5 decks, because stones are expensive and the cardboard speaks just as clearly when you learn to listen, and spread them until a pattern emerged. Direction, intention. The stone for this bag was chosen before I knew the address. The bracelet woven for protection, I won't name. The note written at the edge of sleep when the boundary thins. The cigarette isn't for smoking. Watch, carry what you need to release. Let the smoke take it. This is older than the paper it's wrapped in.
Hello, I am the Viking shaman. 9 years in the high seat. Certificates in natural medicine and traditional healing, which means I know exactly how toxic henbane is and exactly why the women in the Danish grave carried it out anyway. I brew mead that violates health codes and occasionally tries to escape its jars. And 3-4 nights a week I walk streets where I'm not known, leaving gifts for strangers whose houses chooses themselves. This is Masterclass 102. 17 minutes on Seidr trance, if I can extend it that long. And how close we can get to what was happening before the Viking Age began. Not from books alone, from graves I've studied, plants I've grown, and the particular rate of a staff when you stop being entirely yourself. fair owning. Some things can't be tick-tocked. If you want 3 runes for abundance, there are 500 channels. This isn't one. No. You didn't choose to talk about the high seat. Today, the cards did. I have 5 decks. Not because I'm wanting to be excessive. Though my partner might argue, but because each one speaks differently. And your normal standard rune oracle cards is fine. You don't need to be fancy in its use, as the runes are marked on its surface, and if you had imbibed them with some essence and brought them to life, you studied them, and you spoke to them, and eventually they did speak back to you. That is what is only the source of power that's needed, that the runes speak to you. The cheaper ones are perfectly fine. More expensive ones are perfect. What budget suits you, in return calls to you. Which rune oracle deck is it that piques your attention? They don't carry the geological weight of stone these days on it, but they carry the intention. And the intention, as we'll see, is half of what Seidr is. Because this is Masterclass 102, Seidr, Trance, and the high seat. How close can we actually get our practice to? That was in use around 1600 years ago. Now, I would have a spread this morning, but other things had called. But anyway, the seat, the trance, the return. 3 cards, 3 movements. The same 3 movements described in a saga written 3 centuries after the events it claims to record. The same 3 movements I felt last night. Blessing a gift on a doorstep 3 miles from here, when the street lights flickered and I knew the house was the right one. Seidr, the magic of fate, of chords and snares, of weaving what is and what must be. The word itself is older than the Viking Age, older than the runes as we know them today. It comes from a time when the Norns spun at the well of Erd, and certain people learned to listen to the turning of the reel. And before someone comments that the Norns are just mythology, yes and no. No. The stories are maps. The maps point to territory. The territory is still there, if you know how to walk. This is my stuff. Well, I don't have it, but I will show it in the category. But I'll show you 9 years. The word came from actually, I won't say where. Scratch that. I just won't say that. Not until you learn some things stay between me and the tree, or trees if I was to create one for someone else. But that would be in a rare occasion, because it's personal to each one, each practitioner. But the rate of it, the balance, the way it grounds when trance starts to pull hard, that's replicable. That's teachable. That's what the Valva in the bear-cat grave knew, carrying her 82-centimeter iron rod with bronze fittings into death. She had henbane seeds in her purse, white lead powder, a silver chair amulet, literally a miniature high seat. And she was buried in a carriage facing north, dressed in blue and red, with gold thread, as if ready to travel. I don't use henbane. I'm trained in natural medicine, which means I know that LD50, the toxic dose, the line between vision and organ failure. The vulva knew that the lion intimately and had generations of knowledge test them. Lost now, we can't recover it. We can respect it by not pretending a red thread equals initiation. But we can recover the mead, the songs, the blood blocker themselves are lost. The structure of summoning songs isn't. The seed itself, the staff, the willingness to become strange, even to yourself. Now, I have mead that is 3 months old. Well, the yeast tastes like something that wants to be remembered. The Norse didn't drink mead because it was sweet. They drank it because it was alive, microbiologically, spiritually, legally questionable, alive. "500 BC, the Nordic Iron Age begins. That's 1,000 years. 1,000 years before some guy named Bjorn decided Lindisfarne looked raidable. And in that 1,000 years, something was happening in the forests and fields that would become Seidr. Fertility cults, the Vanya, Freya, and Freyr, before they were gods in the later sense, when they were the forces that made barley grow in a climate that barely corroborates the growing season in Scandinavia's approximately 3 Tuesdays in July. You don't survive without relationship, without negotiation, without magic in the most practical sense. And I mean practical. The Velva wasn't a weekend hobbyist. She was infrastructure. She located lost sheep. She predicted weather. She cursed the neighbor who stole your field boundary, and yes, the sagas admit she sometimes told false futures to set people on the road to disaster, full service, light and dark. By the time we get written sources, the Eddas, the sagas, Snorri's Edda, Christianization has already begun. We are reading about a tradition in its final form, possibly already degraded as Annette Host writes, shamanic traditions degenerate and disintegrate due to political pressure and religious changes. So what we see in the Viking Age is the last version. The pre-Viking Age of Seidr, the Iron Age original, is almost entirely lost. Almost. But now we have neighbors, the Sami to the north, Siberian traditions to the east, centuries of exchange in techniques, songs, stuff, methods. The Vadlaka shares structure with Sami Joik. The elevated seat appears across the circumpolar shamanic complexes. We can't recover the original, but we can triangulate it. This isn't copying. This is remembering that humans in relationship with northern landscapes tend to discover similar tools. The staff grounds, the elevation separates, the song entrains, the plants open. And when used with knowledge we've mostly lost, we find where Seidr, Trance, and the high seat must be and shall be found. The Seidr, the magic platform in Eric's saga, written in the 13th century, describing Greenland around 1000 CE. We meet the Thorbjorg, the Little Valva. She arrives at a farm during famine. She's given a high seat. Women sing the Vadlaka, and she answers questions about the future that they may have for her and what they can gain from her sight, peering through the veil and towards the future. and as spirits spoke in tongues that only the Seidr can hear or understand. The details matter. Blue cloak with stones, cat-skin gloves. Freya's chariot was pulled by cats. The staff with a knobbed head. The hood lined with white fur, every element signals liminality. Between worlds, between genders, between community and something else. I don't have catskin gloves, but I do have a cat. I have sat in improvised high seats in forests and living rooms, once on a rooftop, during a storm that I probably shouldn't have stayed through, and the principle holds. Elevation changes. Consciousness threshold spaces are real. Archaeology gives us three major Valva graves: Verkat, Denmark, 9th century, Osberg, Norway, 834 CE, Birka, Sweden, possibly 10th century, each with staffs, each with unusual grave goods, each with evidence of psychoactive plants of ritual preparation. The Verkat women had henbane, Rioskiamus niger, trypane alkaloids, Riosakiamin, scopolamine applied as salve absorbed through skin produces vivid hallucinations, sensations of flight, dissociative states, toxic effects. Professional tools where effective is toxicology and the art of knowing your plants herbaceously as medicine and other choices for war that was not fought on the battlefield. I don't need to be explicit. I don't use this all the time because I believe you people should be smart enough to know how dangerous this stuff can be, what plants and herbology can teach, and what it can learn from our help in its growth. I study it, I grow it, carefully to understand the plant that chose to work with these women. But I grow a lot more than that. My trance comes from the cards, the staff, the mead, the sitting, the breath, the song, the smoke, and everything that isn't bad lucker but serves the same function, calling the allies, opening the door. These cards, the cheapest deck I own, cost less than a coffee. The cardboard is flimsy. The gold paint wears off, but I've read Far Strangers at night. By phone light, after leaving a gift bag and seeing the pattern, the patterns that explains what they need to release. The tool, no, that does not matter. The relationship of it matters. What relationship do you hold with your gods, with your ancestors, and with the spirits and the Lamvatters? How well can you communicate? How well can you understand? How well can you listen to them? And how well can you withstand the torment before you either go insane or you come back safe and sound? Three positions: sitting, the seeing, the return. Same as the saga structure, same as my experience. The pattern persists across media: stone, wood, cardboard, bone. The trance isn't escape, it's engagement. With a different layer. I sit, I hold the stuff. I might have taken a small amount of mead, not enough to intoxicate. I've had smoke from cigarettes that were questionable in some ways, found in no just ordinary location. Enough to soften the boundary, and I wait. I wait. The sagas describe the Valva yawning widely, inhaling the spirits. Some scholars think I don't yawn, I settle. The weight of the stuff becomes the weight of the tray, becomes the weight of the world. Tray. The sounds of the room separate into layers, and then I'm not going to describe what I see. That's between me and the seeing. But I can describe the structure because it's consistent. There's the sitting in ordinary reality. There's the transition, often marked by sound temperature change, the sense of presence, the information which comes as image, voice, knowing, or sometimes just certainty without content. And the return, which is harder than it sounds. The return is why I don't do this for entertainment. You can get lost in the pattern. You can want to stay, the stuff helps. The physical weight, the reminder that you have a body, a time, a responsibility to come back and speak what you saw. The cards help with return, grounding, spreads, where am I now, spreads. The cardboard rune Cards is humble, physical, brings you back to the table, the room, the breath that is breathed in and out, when your body slumbers as an empty vessel until your return, with anticipated members hanging round to find out what you have learned. Academic debate was Seidr possession or journey? Did the Valva inhale spirits or send her soul out? The sources contradict. The Lokasana says Odin passed through the world of men in women's rise. Suggest journey. The saga description of Thorbjorg suggests receptivity, being spoken through. I think both. I think the tradition was large enough for multiple techniques. The high seat ceremony as a public divination, possession, receptivity, safe, contained the night wreck, the solitary practice journey, risk and transformation. My night tonight. Gifting is journey work. I don't know where or who will receive. I don't stay to see. The gift is the anchor, the stone, the bracelet, the note, the cigarette to burn. The physical objects for physical people left in liminal. Time before dawn when the world is between states, that's where I walk. The smoke carries the physics, that's also the metaphor. What you burn, you release. What you release, you stop carrying. The cigarette is cheap. Magic is available, understood, transformed by intention into the tools we use. The Norse had a word for men who did Seidr, ergi, unmanliness, sexual deviance, shame. Snorri Sturluson, writing in the 13th century. He says this art was taught to the priestesses because it was too shameful for men. And yet, Odin the All-Father, king of the gods, ultimate Viking masculinity, learnt Seidr from Freya, beat out of spells like a Valva, passed through the world of men and women's rise, the Loxana. A poem of divine trash talk uses this against him. Loki calls him Aga, the worst insult, and Odin doesn't deny it. He just says, yeah, but I got the results I wanted. The gendering of Seidr is complicated in a warrior culture that valued active aggressive masculinity, the receptive nature of trance, opening, being entered by spirits, becoming vessels, was coded feminine, therefore degrading for men, therefore powerful enough that the chief of the gods ignored the taboo and went straight ahead and done it anyway. But this taboo may be late Viking Age, the Iron Age, roots fertility cults, the Vanir worship, suggests a time when sexuality was more ritually celebrated, when the receptive active distinction wasn't so loaded. The women's magic label may be later stratification of a narrowing world that they were coming out of and into a new one that brought them further legacy in what we now hold historically. I am a man who sits in the hayseat. I don't claim Aggie as identity. I'm not trying to cosplay oppression. But I acknowledge that my practice is in a lineage that was at times gendered female, and that my participation requires respect for that lineage, not appropriation of it, but to honor those women that did it. The cards help here too. Questions of permission of approach, what you're allowed to carry. The runes don't care about your gender. The spirits don't care about your integrity. So how close can we get to the pre-Viking ages of Seidr and today's masterclass session? We have archaeological evidence, physical tools, pharmacological knowledge of what they used, if not how, textual descriptions, late but detailed, cross-cultural parallels, and our own practice. Tested, corrected, tested again. We don't have the specific songs, the complete cosmology. They lived the experience of people who grew up in the tradition of oral stories, folklore, myths, and that there was no such thing as a written historical records for the Seidr or the Viking people, because it was in here, it was the heart of things. You didn't just believe it, you lived the way. And the Seidr practitioners were not to live among the village people. No, they were not allowed to live amongst the villagers, for they were respected, but they were feared. They held power that is not natural. The lived experience of people who grew up in the tradition, the safe use of the strongest plant allies, what we can do, build relationship with the tools that survived, the staff, the seat, the music, the mead, build relationships with the land we actually live on, look around in your area, find a tree, present it with a gift, the gift that you appreciate it and you welcome, and its job should be appreciated. We destroy the land that we live on these days. We do not acknowledge her. We do not care for her, but it supports us, and it hasn't asked for anything in return but to respect the land that you walk on, for it is not the land you own, it is the land it owns you. I'm in the location of Queensland in 2026. Not the Iron Age over in Denmark. And the spirits here have their own names. Build relationship with them, with the community you have here. Not with something you have not seen or not like your own eyes, or not the place that you have not been able to breathe a breath in. My night tonight will be building relationships with the community in silent speech. Gifting is anonymous, but it gives so much solitary and solitary comfort that there are people out there that are not just thinking for themselves and not just crackheads and thieves among thieves. The recipients are part of the web too. They may not be knowing, they may not even be aware of the happening, but without them, the cosmic web of the earth could not stretch its threaded tapestry of threads into the cosmic world without someone like you. But every man will see his fate. Let's just hope you're a man that is worth remembering. What have you done for those who respect you, to carry your name with the respect it deserves? Because your name was only borrowed from the ancestors. You shall give it back untarnished. Five decks, because each one speaks differently. Because stones are expensive, and the cardboard is the sufficient way when you don't have the budget to just throw stones away because it was necessary. The point is, the tool's authenticity is in the relationship's authenticity. If you have no relationship with those wounds, why do you pick them up, and why do you ask them the questions that they should only be telling to the ones that whispers the language that they speak, the ones that can listen to the language that the runes speak in and know? Tonight I'll carry a bag with a stone that called to me this morning. A bracelet woven for protection. I won't name a note written at the edge, and a cigarette to burn. I know who finds it. That's not the point. The point is the practice. The point is the web. Hopefully we have reached the 17-minute mark, or close to. If you're still here, you're part of this now. Not as the audience, as a witness. The sagas were written because someone witnessed. The archaeology exists because someone buried their dead with care. The tradition continues because people like me keep practicing, even when the line between reconstruction and creation may blur. I don't have a time machine, I don't have a staff. I have 5 decks of cards. I mediate that violates codes in a world through neighborhoods where I'm not known. It's enough. It's more than enough. Go, find your seat. It doesn't have to be high. It doesn't have to be old. It has to be yours. Sit in it, see what comes. Return and speak. I will be here when you get back. This was the masterclass 102, Seidr, Trance, and the High Seat. You have been watching the Viking Shaman. This is the Viking Shaman channel where I teach you magic and the art of Seidr. Keep your eyes looking out into the past and the future and beyond, where the spirits roam and speak in languages that can only be picked up when you open your ears to what is out there. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.